NFC, Lions travel to San Francisco, play at the 49ers. The team of destiny, led by Jared Goff and head coach Dan Campbell. Really, it's been a true joy watching them. As a football fan, they're one of the easiest teams to root for just because of the story behind it. All of the players that are in that locker room. Dan Campbell, just watching him from year one to current day has been a true special story. And so it's going to be hard to not root for the Lions. You know, I will definitely be a Lions fan. Now, I'm going to have to objectively break down this game and give you guys what I think, but we can get to that later. 49ers, man, they're coming off of a tight win against the Packers. We picked them to cover, but the weather got pretty bad and the Packers showed up to play. So that was the one game that we were actually off the mark on. But again, was that weather? I don't know. If we look at the weather for this game, projected high of 65 degrees Fahrenheit, 51 degrees is the low. There's only a 10% chance of rain. That could change over the next 7 days. So keep an eye on that. But right now, the forecast shows minimal to no rain and really decent weather. There's some key injuries that we want to monitor as well. Frank Ragnow sprained knee for the Lions. Jonah Jackson, he hurt his knee and went out for the Lions. Brock Wright broke his arm. So the Lions actually signed Zach Ertz as a backup tight end because both Brock Wright and Mitchell are on injury reserve. So right now it's just the Portman. 49ers were also monitoring Debo. We're also monitoring Debo. He had that shoulder injury. It's confirmed there's no fracture. So right now, the last that I saw, there's a 50% chance that he plays or doesn't play. So that'll be huge for the 49ers if he does play, obviously. But let's get to the game. Projection likes the 49ers to win 27-24. So it actually has this game in round 3. The model, again, it does take in a little bit of momentum. In recent games are weighted heavier than the beginning of the season. So, again, of important note. But let's talk about the matchup. First of all, let's point out the obvious. Jared Goff on the road is not ideal. We say this every show. And when talking about the Lions, it sucks because you have to bring it up. Like it's so important to talk about it because it matters. Jared Goff on the road is not near as good as Jared Goff at home in the Dome. Now, the weather should be fine, so I'm not worried about ambient conditions being of concern. But, Jared Goff is... We just have to point it out. I'll leave it at that. 49ers, Brock Purdy, whole nother conversation. We could talk about his performance on Saturday or Sunday, whichever day it was. I think it was Saturday. In the rain game against the Packers, there was a lot of sparked debate about, who he is as a quarterback and if he's actually good or not. I don't want to delve into that whole conversation, but I just wanted to point it out that, he is maybe not as good as everybody had thought. So, Brendan, Lions, they get +7 on the road as an underdog. The total is sitting about 50.5. We mentioned some of the key injuries on both sides of the ball. There are going to be a couple key matchups that we have to highlight and look at and see where each team can exploit. But snap reaction to this line, just your gut feeling and what you saw heading into this week before we dive into any of the numbers or any of the other stuff in the matchups. What do you think?
I'll snap react, and then I have a completely irrelevant question.
Okay.
I think this game is a lot more wide open than the Ravens and the Chiefs, and I actually think the Lions have a decent chance to win, to be honest. My question to you, Harrison, is if Kyle Shanahan had Patrick Mahomes at quarterback, would they ever lose a Super Bowl? Would they?
I don't know. If Patrick Mahomes was on this roster. No, here's the kicker. That's
what I mean. If he's on that roster.
But what people don't realize is the 49ers have the talent that they do because they're paying Brock Purdy a mere $800,000 a year.
True.
They're not paying Patrick Mahomes $30 million a year.
No.
They're not paying that type of money. So they're able to have guys like Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, McCaffrey, Trent Williams. I mean, it's like you can make that argument, but sure, at the same time, it's not feasible. It's not feasible.
I understand.
You either pick a world-beating quarterback and you pay him and you try to restructure the team around that with what you can, or you draft a rookie on a rookie salary and then you pay a shit ton of weapons to come in and support him.
Yeah.
It's like, why are we having this conversation? Or not you and I, but I've seen on Twitter, it's like, oh, if, 49ers had somebody other than Brock Purdy, they would be insane. I'm like, well, think about it. There are very few teams that we've seen the perfect match of the elite weaponry that the 49ers have with the elite quarterback that's not on a rookie contract. So
you're right.
49ers can bitch and complain about Brock Purdy, but sorry, the moment that you sign that elite quarterback, say goodbye to Debo, say goodbye to McCaffrey. You know, you're only operating with one of those guys. So
yeah. Well, I'll start with this. That game against the Packers was in doubt. It was in doubt for a while.
Yeah,
it was really in doubt, and it honestly, if the Packers had the ball last, like, they might have won. It really came down to who had the ball last, like, within reason.
Yeah.
So, like, that the game was in doubt, and that's why I think that this game is pretty wide open. The Lions won by 8 or whatever it was against the Bucks, and that game shouldn't have been that close. They made a few mistakes in there and got kind of bailed out by Baker being a loser.
Here's what I saw on the 49ers side against the Packers. So the Packers ran a lot of 5-0 defensive personnel. They just lined 5 guys up front and allowed them to run free towards Brock, especially in the rain game. They weren't gonna like extend the field because Brock Purdy has tiny little hands and he can't make anything big happen in a rain game. So but the Packers arguably put up one of the best fights against this 49ers offensive line that I've seen. They closed the pocket, they squeezed the gap against Brock Purdy, and they just generated pressure extremely well. And it was a great defensive plan. Shout out to the Packers for coming in and doing that to Trent Williams and company. And will the Lions be able to do the same? Especially if it's not bad weather. So the Lions defensive line is solid, but it's really Aiden Hutchinson that leads that front. You can talk about John Kaminsky, who makes a lot of good plays here and there, but I mean, if you look at him, all things considered, like his overall metrics are not great. Like, he only has a 4.9% pressure rate. Aleem McNeil only has a 6.4% pressure rate. Benito Jones only has 5.1% pressure rate. Where you look at Aiden Hutchinson, he's got a 15.2% pressure rate, and he's always the guy that's getting double teamed on the Lions. So I don't think that they will be able to generate the same sort of pressure on the defensive front as the Packers did, and unfortunately, it won't be a rain game. So, and then one other thing of concern that we were joking about, but the Lions secondary is just toast. They get beat over the middle. They get beat deep a couple times. I mean, if we're being honest with ourselves, like, if the Bucs didn't make so many mistakes, if there wasn't, some of those communication errors that we saw and some of those mistakes on the offensive side of the ball, they could have shredded this Lions secondary. I'm not saying they could have won, but they could have shredded and easily had 1 or 2 more touchdowns. And it's just the middle of the field is a hot spot right now. So this screams George Kittle again. And that's my concern. I don't think the Lions will be able to go in there and put up the same fight that the Packers defense did.
That's fair. One other thing I'll add to that is the 49ers are third in the league in pre-snap motion rate at 50.3%, and I think that's going to really create some mismatches when they motion. Oh, I love this, dude. When they motion McCaffrey out like he's right next to Brock, and they just motion him out, so he has a lot more room to navigate around the linebackers. It's so sick. Anyway, they bring Debo across, they bring Ayuk across, they bring Kittle across. They bring all three of them across. It's really going to create some havoc and some confusion, and the Lions have been known to be beat on the back end this season. And I really think that there's a pretty big potential for some big plays to happen for this 49ers offense based off of that. And I agree with you on the Kittle game. I mean, who Alex Anzalone is going to guard him in the middle of the field? Is the safety going to come down? So I think that Shanahan is going to have a masterclass in this game. However, on the other side of the ball, I think Ben Johnson's really good at creating space. Oh my gosh, they should have route concept on Reynolds touchdown in the back of the end zone. It was so sick.
Yeah.
So sick. Whoa. Anyway, sorry. I understand the Jared Goff on the road thing, but I actually think that the Lions are going to put up a great fight based on vibes, which you can't measure quantitatively.
That's true.
And Dan Campbell is going to be screaming at his team in the locker room. They're going to get out there, or they're going to get after it. And I really think that they keep it close. I think it goes over. I wasn't thinking this at first when I was about to start on my rampage here, but I kind of like an over. I kind of like both offenses really excelling in this game, even though the 49ers have statistically the best defense, right? Or is it the Ravens?
Yeah.
Their defense is ridiculous. Number one and number two and everything.
It's good. It's good. But they're 7th overall in EPA per play allowed on the defensive side of the ball. They're 4th overall in defensive DVOA. So again, they're a top 10 unit in all the advanced metrics, and of course, probably all of the overlying stats. But you can beat the 49ers defense. And one thing I want to point out is two things I want to point out. The Packers found a lot of success in the running game with Aaron Jones. Now, part of that was just Aaron Jones being Aaron Jones. But one thing we do know is that the Lions have a world beater offensive line. Top 3 in the league. Top 2 in the league even. I don't know. I mean, I just know that week in and week out, every time we preview a Detroit Lions game, looking at PFF grades, they have them as a top 3. Looking at, what's his name? Josh Hermsmeyer's, I think, offensive line rankings. He has them as a top 2 unit week in and week out, led by Penei Sewell. This team can do it. And if the 49ers are going to be, as I don't want to say weak, because they're definitely not weak, but if they're going to be as permissive in the run game as they were against the Packers, then what do we know? The Lions have a better offensive line than the Packers, and I think that they have a better 1-2 punch than the Packers do in the backfield. They have Jahmyr Gibbs, who's only gotten better week in and week out, and then David Montgomery, who's been as consistent as anybody in the running game. I think that's where it starts. And then if you look at the Lions, man, they are the 8th in motion rate, 8th overall in the league, and then at play action rate, the 8th overall in play action rate.
Oh yeah,
so
they like
if they can generate a lot of success in the run game, then all Jared Goff needs to do is get it going off of play action. Then Amon-Ra St. Brown can get it going over the middle of the field where, you kind of mentioned it. There's the 49ers aren't weak necessarily, but you can exploit them in certain areas. And one of those areas, if we're looking at the heat map of passing production against for the 49ers, where you can get it done is the middle of the field and the middle right of the field. And that screams Amon-Ra and Laporte. The Port man.
Dude, I'm telling you, I will. The best thing I've ever done in my entire life is draft Sam Laporta this year in fantasy. Fantasy number 1 tight end. I swear, every single team except for one where you got him, you freaking bastard.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's just the coolest thing I've ever done. He's the best. He's the best, guys. He's so good. I love him.
And we mentioned that the 49ers they're 6th overall in EPA, or 7th overall in EPA per play allowed on the defensive side of the ball, 4th overall in EPA per pass allowed, but 25th overall in EPA per rush allowed. So again, for the Lions to win, the blueprint looks pretty evident that it starts with the run game. As much as I hate the acronym or the phrase "establish the run," I don't think I think that's an old school way of thinking about it. But in this case, that's the blueprint. It's, you get going in the run game, and then you generate explosive plays off of the play action using Amon-Ra St. Brown and Laporte man over the middle of the field. And that's how the Lions get this game done. on the offensive side of the ball. The reason that I am concerned for the Lions is on the defensive side of the ball. We talked about the leaky secondary that they have and kind of what they've shown to us in the past few playoff games. The Lions are 25th overall in explosive play rate allowed. And if the weather's not bad and everybody's healthy and ready to go, we know that the 49ers can absolutely shred the secondary. You know, it could be Kittle, it could be Ayuk. If Debo's healthy, it could be Debo. We even saw Juwan Jennings put up a few good plays in the game with the Packers. So,
good blocking,
I mean, shit, like, it's going to be tough for the Lions to do this with what they're working on the defensive side of the ball. So, if the Lions are going to win this game, I agree. It's got to go over the total, and they got to just straight up pace the 49ers and outdo them. They got to strike first, and then control the clock in the run game. So, that's the Lions' blueprint for success, but it's going to be a tough road. I won't make it sound like roses.
Yeah,
it's going to be tough.
I believe in the NFL script. I do. I'm a believer, and I think that this game is kind of under the radar here because you got Patrick Mahomes versus Lamar Jackson. Well, you know what? This is the primetime game. This is the night game. You know it's going to be close, baby. Lions cover 7 points right now. Come on now.
Ooh,
come on.
I go Ravens win. But the cover, you know, I got to be honest. I took Lions 7.5, but I kind of regret it.
No, don't you dare! Don't you dare!
So one thing that I found successful for all of you listening and that actually give a shit about what I say is finding lines early in the week is the best thing to do.
Yeah.
Because you can get them early before the public drives the numbers any which way. But I think if the 49ers get the 6.5, I can see him covering.
I'll agree with you on that, but at 7, which is what I did take, because it was 6.5 last night. It was, I think, 7.5, then went to 6.5. Now it's at 7 on DraftKings at least. I took it there for the push if it'll do it, but
yeah,
I still think it's an offensive shootout. The overhits, and it's comes down to who has the ball last.
Yeah. Subjectively speaking, I'm rooting for the Lions. I want the Lions to win, hands down. But objectively speaking, probabilistically speaking, the 49ers have the edge here on both sides of the football, I think, especially being at home. And, man, the 49ers 6.5 is sexy. And it's just... I'm glad I got the 7.5 for the Lions because then I have something that I would love to root for. But if you told me you got 49ers -7, 49ers -6.5, I wouldn't blame you one bit. Looking at the splits too, 50% of the bets are on the Lions, 52%, but only 22% of the handle is on the Lions. So major money pouring in on the 49ers. Again, it's early in the week. It's only Monday, so this doesn't profile the entire public action, but it's pretty indicative that there's some big money. Now, not sure if that's sharp money. You're going to have to figure that out for yourself. But big money coming in on the 49ers. But the numbers say 49ers, but damn it, dude. I want Dan Campbell to take it home, man. I want the Lions to get there.
It's too good of a story.
It is.
For it to happen.
It is. God.
And it's like, this is their year. I feel like after this, well, I don't know how their cap space looks like after this year. It's like, are they going to be able to keep everybody, yada, yada. They got a lot of people on rookie contracts.
Ben Johnson's probably going to be a head coach elsewhere. You know?
He's so sick.
Yeah.
He's so sick.
Dog. He's a dog.
He's sick.
All right, man.
Whoop.
Hey.
First touchdown score.
Okay. Oh, yeah. I forgot to do that. First touchdown score in this game for me is the George Kittle. On a deep post for about 40 yards. That's my bold prediction for the game. First touchdown, George Kittle, 40-yard tutty.
I'm going David Montgomery.
Dog.
3 yards, straight up the gut.
Honestly, I could see Dan Campbell. Again, we saw he did it against the Bucs. He won the toss, but he elected to receive it.
It's pretty cool. Yeah.
So I could see him absolutely doing that, marching down the field, punching one in with David Montgomery, and setting the tone. It's not out of the realm of possibility. And that would be a hell of a start to that game. So, all right, guys. Hey, we appreciate you watching. We will be back here next week for Super Bowl Sunday, of course. Got a lot to talk about, but hey, we appreciate you watching. We will be back here next week. Don't miss out. Talk to you guys later.